So I cited this Variety article in one of my last videos where we talked about hardware and one of the PlayStation CEOs pretty much aligning expectations for the PS5 Pro. I thought it was very interesting. The way the article reads, I'm not going to lie to you, it reads really strange. So I went back and I was looking through, and there's an editor's note on top of this particular interview. The editor writes, Variety's interview with Sony Interactive Entertainment CEOs Herman Holst and Hideaki Nishino occurred on October 16th, prior to PlayStation's Tuesday announcement it is shutting down Firewalk Studios and Neon Koi. Sony Interactive Entertainment was unable to make studio business CEO Holst available for additional comment or to clarify his previous comments about layoffs in this story ahead of publication. This is very interesting. Now, I cited this because Nishino was saying, hey, the PS5 Pro is not next gen. It's going to do what the PS5 can do, but it's more for those who want a visual improvement. I thought, okay, they're talking strategy. They're talking about their business. Not really much for me to see here, but I never necessarily considered what was said about layoffs in this particular article. Interesting. So the interviewer asked and said, you all underwent rounds of layoffs earlier this year, similar to those that hit the entire gaming industry in 2024. And sadly, the gaming industry went to crap. I think after 2020, video game companies had some kind of insane delusion thinking that everything was going to be the exact same. I don't know who didn't see that everybody was going to go back to work and try to work towards normal, of which we were working harder to get things back to normal. Gaming probably took a hit, especially from the high that it was in, and somehow thought that it was going to continue that way. You don't have unlimited amount. The biggest spenders in gaming have a very limited amount of time to actually play. This is why games are of a certain way now, so that they can easily extract as much money from these folk. But a different story. But Microsoft recently had, new ones. You all have taken Concord offline, and you had additional cuts at Bungie. What is the current outlook for PlayStation and expectations of studios and games being shut down moving forward? Holst said, I'll say a few things on that. It's our duty to look at our resource planning and make sure we run a sustainable business. That's part of being CEO. We never take that lightly because we know these people personally, and it's very close to our hearts and the teams and good working atmospheres. But yes, we've had some layoffs. But it's also important to realize that on the content side, PlayStation Studios is now a much bigger organization than when it started. It's grown tremendously, and that is organic growth that our existing teams, I think, hired quite aggressively, as well as through M&A. So the organization and employment is much greater now than it was, let's say, for example, 5 years ago. Interesting. So apparently, this is a whole bunch of nothing in terms of this answer, but it's interesting to see that somewhere, somehow, considerations were being made. Not saying that there's anything, sinister here, or there's any kind of, posturing or anything that is untrue here, but this answer is just very interesting and vague and almost gives you nothing in terms of just talking about layoffs. It's not something that many CEOs want to talk about. It's not something that I don't, care to actually sit here and talk about it in a way that I think gives any kind of point or whatever it is. I couldn't be bothered about that because, like I've said, it's something that does affect people. But to come back and to look at this article and see the editor put that little note there, I'm kind of interested as to exactly how, deliberations must have been going on as to what was going to happen to the developers or to the development studio, I guess, after Concord had been taken offline. And I think this is probably the most important part of the conversation. So think about it. There was also another report a few weeks ago where we were told, or I guess not told, but some people put, screenshots out there that Concord was being updated. They showed some updates going on, and so some people were thinking maybe they were going to go ahead and revive the title or whatever it is. I strongly believe that that should have been PlayStation's move in this particular area. Reviving the title was the best way to go. No doubt about that. A fully functional game is a very invaluable resource if it's used properly. And I think redirecting and ensuring that, the game could go a different direction, something that could appeal to an audience that's there for it, would have probably worked out. There's also the side from the corporate aspect where if they quickly write off their losses, they can pretty much roll it into some accounting that probably offsets their profits at the end of the day. So I think the latter was probably the way to go. But this doesn't bode well. What this now means is PlayStation is in a very interesting place where it's experimented with a game like Helldivers 2, which I think was a good run. It was a successful game, but the game is still held back by potential of a final audience, either, like I've posited, the PS4 audience or the Xbox audience. There's still 30 million, 50 million consoles somewhere. If you want to play in the big leagues, you need to go to those platforms. Now, Helldivers may have been one of those, small league type live service games that they want to harness with PC and PlayStation, so that's fine. The question now is, are they hoping that Marathon is that big game? Because if they're hoping that Marathon is that big game, they also need to realize that Bungie is one of those companies that, some people are maybe gung-ho about buying their games, and some people feel like they have a question mark while looking at Bungie's games. Like me, I'm not going to jump on Marathon for any reason. Why? Not really a big Destiny fan. FPS shooters, I'm very picky. It wasn't my forte. Plus, at the time, I was playing Tom Clancy's The Division 1 and Division 2 all those years, and nothing interested me about Bungie, about Destiny. I tried. People said to try. Some of my friends said it was fun. I never could get into it. So when I look at Marathon, I have to wait. Somebody like me, they want to say, oh, you want to come in here? I have to wait to see what it looks like. Another thing, too, is Marathon seems somewhat niche. It's an extraction shooter. That's another challenge here, again, when you kind of think about it. Because, again, what PlayStation is looking for, and I think, this is very, very important that we talk about it, is what style, what kind of, shooter or live service game are they looking for? And the question, needs to be asked, and look and see if Bungie's Marathon can actually answer that question and converge there. Bungie's Destiny was more, RPG. Well, should I say RPG? I'll talk about maybe looter shooter, a little bit more in terms of depth, not just a little more, like, in terms of depth and lore and all the above. A game like The Division was more in depth, lore, gear game, loot was the big thing where loot really did, drive a lot of the game. Now, whether or not it mattered in many cases, that's a whole different conversation for The Division audiences. So when you think about all of this, I strongly believe that PlayStation and the CEOs, probably knew that something was going on. Maybe I don't know if they knew when this article was going to be, posted. I don't know what, must have been going on here, but it seemed like everything was, all fine and dandy. Maybe the writers and maybe the editors probably were blindsided by the layoffs. There's no way they would have known. Nobody told them anything. So all that was said was, we had layoffs and, we're doing this for our business strategy. We're trying to do all of these things and A, B, C, D. And then they realize right before they publish their article, going through the editorial process, they've gone ahead and laid off an entire studio again. So that's probably why they went ahead and put the editor's note. Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching the video. Appreciate you guys' time and audience. Hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.